we do not have a weight loss problem. We have a weight maintenance problem. The reason I ask 5 to 10 additional pounds is when we go to find maintenance calories, it gives me wiggle room to make this person not feel like a failure.
Are you someone who's struggled with your weight for decades and done all the diets, done all the exercise, but something just is not clicking? Well, if that is you, welcome to the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast. In today's episode, we are talking to Coach Garrett Query, GQ, as we're going to call him, and we're talking all things insulin resistance. So if you're ready, listen up and lean in as we elevate your mind. Hello, everyone. I am so excited. We are so excited to have you guys here today to talk about a very specific topic that we haven't really touched on in our podcast, because for us, while we have good knowledge of that, it's not necessarily our expertise. So we have brought an expert in with nearly 2 decades of strength training experience and a data-driven approach to women's health. Coach GQ has transformed the lives of hundreds of women struggling with complex health challenges. After becoming a certified trainer in 2016, he quickly recognized that women's health needs extended beyond traditional fitness programming, as we're going to talk about. This insight launched him into extensive continuing education, focusing on gut health, hormone optimization, and autoimmune conditions specifically affecting women. Praise Jesus. His evidence-based methodology combines strategic strength training with comprehensive nutrition protocols and lifestyle modifications, addressing the root causes, which we love here, of his clients and health concerns. Having listen to me, over 2,000 lab panels, Coach GQ specializes in identifying underlying metabolic imbalances that conventional approaches often miss. Coach GQ is passionate about empowering women with the knowledge and tools to take control of their health journeys, proving that transformative results are possible at any age. Again, praise Jesus, through the right combination of science, strategy, and support. Woo! Welcome, Coach GQ.
A lot of praise Jesus in there.
I mean, listen, I'm saying it for my audience. You and I know that at this age, he knows how old I am, 42 years old.
Wait, how old are you?
I'll be 35 in 6 weeks.
Okay. Happy birthday. That just the acknowledgement is enough, right? The acknowledgement of things are a bit different at this age. And that's why Jesus needed to be praised. Okay, homegirl.
Well, I have a question with you reading off that bio. Because of your experience, like, why did you gravitate towards women and supporting them in this role? Like, what led you to that?
And then also, I would love for you to share your own story. So, okay, bring that all together. Sorry.
So real quick, something I actually want to talk about, something that, kind of popped into my head is I see this far too often, and it drives me nuts, and actually this speaks more to what you guys do from the psychological. I am so sick of having women bash men for wanting to help them. Like, y'all keep screaming about how all of the studies are on men and we don't care about women and blah, blah, blah. And then here we are, men who specialize in women's health, and you guys will, like, some of y'all, I'm not saying all of you, will sit there and bash us into the ground. How dare you speak about women's health? You're not a woman, blah, blah, like just getting wildly angry and upset.
Right.
And it's like,
but then they'll have an OBGYN that's male.
Yeah.
It's not everyone, but it's just like, look, like, we're here to help. We're not your enemy. Like, just let us help. How it got started, I mean, this is so multifactorial. Like, I mean, I was very close with my mom growing up, and unfortunately she passed away. 18 years old, so we're coming up on, what is it? It'll be like 17 years, I think, in six or so months that she's been gone. So, I mean, that played a huge role early on in my career. I have obnoxious legs, like they're just ridiculous. And so I was quickly known for, like, my legs, my leg training, therefore glutes. And obviously that's become very popular over the last decade as far as, like, training glutes. And that's just kind of ended up being the audience that I attracted as far as, like, female clientele. And it was just a quick realization, of like, hey, this is way deeper than just sets, reps, time under tension. There's needs to be a lot deeper understanding of what's going on and how to help these people. And I think it was also multifactorial in the fact that, like, there was a good 8 years that I struggled with undiagnosed hypothyroidism. So for the most part, for a good 8 years, like you could tell I worked out, but at the same time, to most men, I did not like, I did not meet the standards of most men as far as like, hey, I'm going to take advice from this guy, right? Like they're going to much rather take advice from the guy who's walking around with a six pack because they think that guy, because he has a six pack, can make them look like that. Right. Not knowing that a lot of these guys are just purely genetically gifted. They look at weights and they magically, like I was recently talking to my former roommate when I first moved out here. We know each other from back home. We kind of moved out here together. And we're going to get back cranking together. And like kids got elite genetics, like just unbelievable. And yeah, so like a lot of times, unfortunately, men tend to, they're like, well, that guy looks like that. He can make me look like that. So therefore I'm going to hire him. And so I think that's just kind of how my career ended up, right? Like I just didn't have a lot of males coming to me for advice because they just simply looked at me and they're like, well, this guy looks okay, but I don't want to look okay. I'm going to go hire this guy.
Right.
And the female demographic, they were coming to me for leg growth. And then I just kept diving deeper and deeper to make sure that I could help those people who were hiring me.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it too, the issues that you address, I think women are more open to that conversation. You know, obviously hormonal health, gut health, autoimmune issues. I mean, if we look at the statistics now, what is it? Before it was 1-to-1 on autoimmune issues. Like, I don't remember the exact dates, like I'm going to say 2 decades ago, whereas now it's increased to like 7-to-1, women over men in regards to autoimmune struggles. And so I think that you having had your own story and understanding how all of that plays into struggles with weight and physical health, that even though you're not a female, you have something that relates to them. And I think that's what people need to understand. And that's not to say that you have to have every ailment to treat someone. No. You have to really create space.
Well, I would equate it to what you're saying is he had the nutrition. I'm assuming you probably had nutrition, dialed in at that point. You had the training dialed in at that point, but something was still missing. And I think a lot of women feel that way of like, I'm doing the exercise, I'm doing this part of it, like with the nutrition, I'm focusing on flexibility, but something is still missing.
Yeah.
And it's overlooked or ignored, which was what probably you went through or just unknown, right? Like, I'm still so tired. And it's like, well, you can't just be this tired all the time. Well, it's just normal. It's like, this is not normal.
Right.
And normalizing unnormal too has seen a lot with us.
Yeah. No, I love it.
In 2018, I did a photo shoot prep. Walking into the year of 2018, I made a decision. I was like, my weight had gotten a little out of control. Didn't really like my body comp. And I was like, I am going to book and pay for a photo shoot on my birthday that year. And I did a photo shoot prep. And when I set my mind to something, and especially if there's like an intrinsic motivation, I will complete the task no matter what. And mind you, this was the height of low T, hypothyroid, undiagnosed, had no idea, lived and breathed in a chronic state of fatigue 24/7.
Yeah.
And I will be the first person to tell you that if you live in this world of I have X, so therefore I cannot lose weight, I cannot, kindly kick rocks, because I promise you, I lost 47 pounds in the depths of low T hypothyroidism. Guess what? Caloric deficit is still a caloric deficit. Now, was I absolutely miserable for 6 months and just an egregious and horrible human being to be around? 100%. It was terrible. But this is where, like, I didn't know what I didn't know. So it's like, hey, like, listen, these things aren't normal. You don't have to live through this. Get your labs checked. Get these things dialed in so you can feel normal. And it doesn't feel like you have to be, pushing a stone up Everest every single day. Like, that's not how it should feel. When I finally treated my thyroid in November of 2023, leading into last year, right? So 2024, I decided to diet down. and like go into a dieting phase. I hadn't been in one in a long time. I dropped 30 pounds in 90 days.
Whoa.
Sheesh.
I was 224 pounds, sub 10% body fat, and peeled.
Wow. Probably a lot of inflammation in your body too.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah,
just
like I didn't just lose 30 pounds of fat, like definitely
Right.
dropped probably 10 to 12 pounds of inflammation right out the gate. But the caveat there is like it was the easiest diet of my life. Like
Mhm.
it wasn't hard. It wasn't like I was trudging uphill. Like, did I have some hunger? Yeah, absolutely. Did I have some times I didn't want to do my workouts? Absolutely. It's human nature.
Right.
But like 2018 versus 2024, completely night and day difference. And I did it in half the time.
Yeah, I love it. One thing that you said, I think is important for someone who has PCOS, hypothyroidism, insulin resistance, or just is going through transition like perimenopause, is that idea that, well, I have this, so therefore I can't. And one thing I actually wrote in my, I have a notes, the notes app in my phone. Of course, I have a note that is like ideas for social media. And the thing I wrote down is if you want to create a healthy body, if you want to create a healthy body, you have to recreate the thoughts of that caused your current state of health.
Mhm.
So that idea of like, I can't. So if that's your thought process, that's the thing you actually have to recreate so that you can then say there are options. There is also the lifestyle changes that I haven't made or I've been trying to see quick fixes with, whatever that looks like. So when you said that, I was like, wow, that's literally what I wrote in my phone today is if you want to create a healthy body, you have to recreate the thoughts that have created the body you're in right now.
So going into what we wanted to talk to you about today is what I want you to explain to our audience, like what you perceive insulin resistance is, like what is your definition that you use with your clients and what role does that play in like stopping them from achieving that body that they're trying to go for? Or really not even the aesthetic body, but like their internal health as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's get like really just technical and
We get
appropriate.
nerdy.
Yeah, get a little nerdy
wear
to
my
start.
Get
glasses
nerdy
today.
with me.
Oh my
Talk
God.
nerdy to me.
Insulin is a hormone, right? Produced
Uh-huh.
by the pancreas. It's going to help regulate your blood glucose levels. When you're eating, specifically carbs are going to be the obvious one here. Glucose is going to enter into your bloodstream and insulin is going to act like that key,
Mhm.
to unlock, allowing glucose to get into the cell to be used for energy, and stored for later use.
Mhm.
Insulin resistance specifically, your cells, especially in muscles, fat, liver, are going to not be responding properly to that insulin key anymore, right? Like it's going to go to unlock. It's not going to be responding appropriately to that signal anymore. And as a result, your body needs to produce more insulin to get that same effect. And that's where we can start to see insulin levels start to climb. And that's where we can start to see that resistance in those cells.
Mm-hmm. I like to explain it like you have a doorman at a club, right? And the glucose is like, right? Hey, can I get it? Or the insulin takes the glucose. It's like, hey, can I get in, cell? And it's like, yeah, come in, right? And then it like does that over and over and over again. But once it's at capacity, because there's so much blood sugar, right, in the body that it knocks and he's like, no, we're full here, bro. Like you got to go somewhere else. And then over time, that happens over and over again. And as you said, that can create that resistance. Talk to us about that idea around the blood sugar aspect or glucose aspect of things. Not just from our diet, but also from this, because of course I'm a therapist. So I also think of like the amount of stress we have in our lives. You and I talked about it on your podcast of like how our ancestors would experience what we experience one day of stress, like they wouldn't experience that in a year. So how does insulin resistance, both from a diet, but also lifestyle stress standpoint, how does it come to be? Or what is the common ways that people would become insulin resistant?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's going to be, like you said, there's going to be multiple pathways that we can arrive into this place. It can be poor muscle to like fat ratio. In today's the world. I see this with a lot of women. Like we will see women who aesthetically looking, they're healthy. They are quote unquote skinny.
Mhm.
But unfortunately, there's a lot of women are skinny fat, meaning that they have more body fat on their body than they do have muscle tissue. And while that their body frame and type may still be aesthetically pleasing, um, that doesn't negate them from the negative effects of carrying more body fat than you are muscle mass on your body. Inadequate protein can definitely, prevent proper muscle maintenance and growth, which is absolutely critical as you cross the age of 30 as women, because we know muscle mass begins to decline as early as 30 years old. And I can't remember the exact like percentage, but like it's a specific percentage for every decade.
Right. I think it's like, was it 2% per decade?
It's 3. I
2 to
would say 2 to
3%.
3.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's going to be a big one. Oftentimes, when dealing with clients over the years, like some big issues, you don't move as much, right? You're just simply not moving as much. Like we typically see this, like especially for someone who, let's take women for example. Let's say you were a collegiate athlete, and let's just say you met your husband in college. Shortly after, you had children. A lot of times, these women, right, they go from athlete to wife, mom, and their activity level is still pretty decent. Like they're still moving around a good amount, etc. But as those children age, as those children need less from them, they're working a desk job, their activity starts to slowly decline, but their nutritional habits don't. And especially if they don't prioritize protein for years and years and years, they're not prioritizing strength training, they're not conscious of how much movement that they are getting. That is where we get the inevitable like societal acceptable of, oh, this is just part of aging. Oh, you're getting fat because my metabolism is slowing down. We now know from, a massive study that was published a handful of years ago, that's not true. Our metabolic rate does not actually slow down until we are well into our 60s.
Yeah. It's insane to me. And I hear it every day. And we obviously are compassionate towards those individuals because they don't know, like you said, they don't know what they don't know. So being able to educate them is important. But I am an example. I had a hysterectomy at 35, right? And I was pushed into perimenopause earlier than others my age because I strength train and have been consistent with training and prioritizing protein and managing stress and all of those things. I have never experienced what others have. Now, can I be an anomaly? Sure. But then I look at my counterparts, my age, who are doing something similar, and we're not seeing a lot of what the average woman is seeing.
Well, that's a good question is what is the average woman seeing?
Yeah.
Who has experienced like insulin resistance, but may not know? Like, what are some symptoms that you are seeing that women have that would suggest they have insulin resistance that they may not know are a symptom of that?
Yeah. Just a quick kind of like circle back is, I think one of the most common things that I see with so many women is, and this is honestly like I'm seeing it a lot more in men too, is with like hustle culture and the United States as a general whole and how we manage our work-life balance is a lot of times Monday through Friday, people will intentionally or unintentionally essentially starve themselves, right? Like they just, they run out the door, they maybe grab a granola bar and a coffee. So many men tend to be like, oh, I fast. Like I don't eat in the morning. I eat at noon. And then it's oftentimes like a light, quote unquote, healthy lunch, maybe salad with, like dressing on the side because health, right? And then, they have a decent dinner and maybe an evening snack. But then come Friday night is where all bets are off, right? They've still produced that same behavior. And maybe even Friday is even worse. Maybe they did skip breakfast that day. had, that normal lunch because they're really trying this time. They really want to get their health in check. And then it's Friday night out and it's, a couple of cocktails, it's an appetizer, it's a meal, it's dessert. And before you know it, like you've smashed 3,000 to 5,000 calories in a single sitting. And the depth that you've been in all week is now basically gone. And if it's not gone, it's going to be gone tomorrow at brunch. But you're lacking so much nutrient status, right? So this can drive, that style of nutrition can drive insulin resistance in itself as well, because like you're not getting appropriate amounts of micronutrients. You're probably lacking daily protein intake to maintain muscle tissue, etc., metabolism, and glucose regulation, right? Consuming protein at every single meal, as well as fiber, is going to help with your glucose regulation, right? And those spikes and, how your body's managing your insulin, your glucose, and your A1C. And that's where we can get into massive trouble as well. So we're going to see energy crashes, significant fatigue a couple hours after a meal, especially with like carb heavy meals. Like Ray, you're going to have that meal. You're going to feel lethargic. You may be more irritable or just tired, feelings like you're ready for a nap. Oftentimes mood dysregulation is going to come from it, becoming irritable, foggy, not themselves between meals. Often labeled as hangry, right? Like Danny DeVito in the Snickers commercial.
I love it.
Good reference.
Afternoon fatigue, predictable energy crashes, oftentimes midday, 2 to 4 p.m. Persistent cravings for carbs and sweets. A lot of times these will become very intense in the evening time. That's going to be multifactorial. Some other things can kind of cause that. Difficulty losing weight despite seemingly doing everything right. And this can just be, that one specifically can be very just like macronutrient dependent a lot of time. Don't get me wrong, micros are going to be very, very important in the case of insulin resistance. But this can be just like the outline of the macros that you're hitting on a day-to-day basis and like understanding what that looks like. Interestingly enough, these symptoms can appear both in sedentary individuals, right? Someone who's not like that I kind of described, right? Maybe you work at a desk a lot, you're not getting a lot of daily movement. You may not be strength training, or maybe you are strength training, but maybe your movement's down, etc. But it also can happen in athletes in the complete opposite extreme, right? So we can have an athlete, someone who's training, let's just say 4, 5, 6 days per week. Let's say they are very active human beings. And maybe on top of this, they are like a PT and they're like maybe training some group classes or dance classes. And they have a hobby of like mountain biking or skiing or other things. Their activity level is just through the roof. And then you go and you look at their nutrition, and for women, it's not bad. Like they're eating a decent amount of food, comparatively speaking to what I typically get in on intake forms, but it's nowhere near matching their level of output because so many women are so misinformed. Like they don't even realize, like a lot of my female athletes, they smash 27, 3,000, upwards of 3,500 calories in season. Like I have women more than most grown men.
Right.
Regularly. And so what we can see in this situation is we can see the development of insulin resistance due to stress, right? So everyone's physiology is going to react differently. A lot of women, when I see this situation, what I just kind of outlined, we can see a breakdown of sex hormones, poor sex hormone function, or we can see a breakdown of thyroid function. But also another thing, and this is again just going to be very dependent on you as you're an N of 1, is we can see insulin resistance start to develop and cause problems due to the stress that's being put on the body and the fact that nutrition is not matching level of output.
Okay, so
She's lived this life.
well, I'm no. I was going to go into, I find what the symptoms that you're describing so interesting because we'll go into even between the sedentary and the like pro athlete kind of style, the intermediate clients that we both have, of just like your normal everyday woman, is a lot of them are going, I just don't know why I'm not losing weight. I just don't know why I'm not losing weight. Right. But what you're describing, like food noise, is essentially what you're describing. Like these catchy terms that are being used and promoted by marketing right now. And it's like, okay, then here's the GLP-1 that will solve all of this. But really, and going back to like what we talk about, is we have to figure out the why, the behind the scenes kind of stuff, that this isn't just like, here's, you have pain, here's some Tylenol or something like that. And I find it so interesting of, okay, so same thing for you. Like, we're behind the scenes of like the psychology behind it. You're behind the scenes of like, okay, what is these food choices that you're doing essentially doing to your cells that are going to promote these behaviors? And where we're saying, okay, what are the behaviors and where did they come from as well? So it's kind of our worlds clashing. But then we have, you are also battling these marketing agencies that are going, oh, here's your solution, right? They get off that solution, or they are done with that diet, whatever it is, but they still have these behaviors of like, they're not eating enough throughout the day. And then they're having this late night meal that is very carb heavy, right? So that's going to spike our insulin. We're essentially under eating throughout the week. And then the weekend comes around.
And on top of that, our mental health is a disaster.
Yeah. There is no balance. There is no boundaries. There is no regulation of stress.
And that's probably something I've been dealing with my entire life. So my nervous system is fucking, out of control. So then my immune system is out of control. So my endocrine system is out of control. And my behaviors are just exacerbating all that.
Well, and then you've got the sleep issue too.
Right.
So let me ask this. And so you have someone that's presenting with all of this. Like, what is one of the first things that you do on your end as a coach?
That's a good question.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to build foundational practices. Biggest thing, getting someone tracking their nutrition. You wouldn't manage your money without looking at your fucking bank statements. Like it's not disordered. Now, there be disorder there? 100%.
Yeah.
And with the client like that, right? So like if someone comes to me and they maybe have a disordered past, maybe they've tracked nutrition, they become very obsessive. Again, this is where like social media is like, it's like a blessing and a curse at the same time. Is like, there's unfortunately other coaches out there like you ladies who deal with the psychological stuff, and you guys put out pieces of content, and unfortunately pieces of content can only provide so much context. There's a huge issue, right, where it's like, oh, well, tracking my nutrition is disordered and I have a really bad relationship with it. It's like, well, do you have a really bad relationship with it, or did you just like never actually follow through with it? And like, then you became obsessive. And I think another thing to speak on is we do not have a weight loss problem in this country.
Right.
People, thousands of pounds every single year. We have a weight maintenance problem. No one, fuck all, knows how to maintain weight loss.
Right.
You actually brought up GLP-1s. I'm a massive advocate of a GLP-1 when utilized with a coach who understands how to implement like protein lifestyle practices, because it can be legitimately a cheat code in building those lifestyle practices, because it can kind of quiet down that food noise. It can help with the insulin resistance. It can really like dial someone in, and we can achieve the results that we're looking for a lot faster. And a lot of times, something that I've recently kind of come up with, and it's actually really funny. I was just at a conference last week. I had an opportunity to just chat with Alan Aragon. We were talking and discussing like his talk, and I was also discussing kind of my thoughts and theories behind majority of the time, depending on how much someone wants to lose, especially when we're dealing with like someone who maybe they need to lose 50 plus pounds. A lot of times what I will do is I will set a target for 5 to 10 pounds lower than their quote unquote goal weight. And the reason that I do that is, again, we do not have a weight loss problem. We have a weight maintenance problem. The reason I ask 5 to 10 additional pounds is when we go to find maintenance calories, it gives me wiggle room to make this person not feel like a failure.
Hey, YouTube, today's giveaway, yes, we're starting this, is the Self Mastery Method, which is a self led program on my mindset method. All you have to do is comment below on this podcast, and we are going to randomly select the winner, and you will get access to that program for 4 months and be able to work through the entire method and join along with all that we do. Now, back to the show.
So often people understand how to lose weight. They utilize like a specific practice, etc. In order to, they will use this for a specific practice to like lose the weight. Then and maybe they're relatively informed, they're like, okay, well, now I need to find maintenance calories.
Mm-hmm.
But when no one tells them, depending on the size of human being you are, depending on how much muscle tissue on your body, you may gain back 2 to 8 pounds. And that's completely normal. It can be water, glycogen, fecal matter in your body. And that doesn't mean that you have failed your diet. That is just your new standard. So I always try, I'm like, hey, let's pull down an additional 5 to 10 as we bring you out of this diet and we find maintenance calories and we can like recomp, we can find your forever body and like your forever maintenance calories within a, give or take a couple hundred, because we know that that's a moving target. It gives people a lot better like understanding of like, hey, this is like my maintenance, this is like the etc. And oftentimes makes people feel a lot better. And what's great is like when you actually find maintenance calories, you actually have food freedom.
Right.
You actually have the ability to, consume a large amount of food on a day-to-day basis. And you can, as you've built that relationship, as you track nutrition, you can start to understand like how you can manipulate certain variables. Say that you have a wedding coming up in 4 weeks, you can go into a little bit of a mini cut and it's not a big guessing game. It's not, well, I need to slash my calories to 1200. It's, you may only need to pull 300 or 400.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I want to bring it back because there's a few little nuggets there that I want our audience to hear. So the first one was, tracking your food, and as a therapist who's worked in all levels of care of eating disorder treatment, tracking your food becomes obsessive because of the story you're telling yourself about it and your intention on tracking. If tracking food is to learn about portion size, to educate yourself, and to eventually work your way out of it, that's a totally different mindset than someone who is using it solely to become smaller, thinner, good enough, worthy, right? Those are two different people. And then in regards to once we can get to weight maintenance, one thing that I do find can be challenging that I want people to hear is, yes, you do have food freedom, but we have to, again, rewrite the conversations, the thoughts we're having about what eating a larger amount of food means to us. I'll see clients think weight maintenance is a free-for-all, and not necessarily in our program. It'll be the story they've told me about their previous programs where they did learn weight maintenance, but because they didn't do that underlying work and that foundation, they think, oh, my extra 500 to 700 calories of food that I'm eating, I say 700 if they're going to be risky enough to let us get it way up there. And that's probably not the person I'm talking about in this case, but is that Friday night that you talked about, like that covers that Friday night where it's, I have all this room. So I think for people listening, yes, it can create food freedom, but you also have to like rewrite what increasing that amount of calories in and what that looks like. What's the reality of that? So just want to put that out there.
I think another quick note on that one before we proceed is this. What I tend to find when people truly find maintenance calories and they're consistent with it on a day-to-day basis, the likelihood of going out for dinner, having multiple cocktails, appetizer, meal, and dessert, and like having an appetite for that is oftentimes negligible because like you're satiated every day. You don't feel deprived. So the urges and cravings to just go full send on a meal isn't there. Like you're more likely to one of two things, especially if you're tracking your nutrition and your maintenance calories. And let's just say maybe it's your anniversary. And like, that's why, like it's a celebratory meal where you are going to have dessert, dinner, or sorry, an appetizer, dinner, dessert in a couple of cocktails. You might focus on protein and fiber content and water early on in the day in order to conserve the amount of calories that you would like to consume for your evening meal and enjoy that meal. And then the next day, you're right back on track and you're moving on as if nothing has changed, because nothing has changed. Not a bad thing. It actually unlocks, Jocko with his book, Discipline Equals Freedom. Like the amount that is like that one statement has just like impacted my life in the last 2 years and just like really like been such an aha thing in so many avenues. It's just so true. Is like discipline around these things, if you can learn the skill sets, will in the end up leading to far more freedom in your life that you crave while having the physique that you want.
Yeah, that's really consistency, right? It's creating consistency in a lifestyle that, as you said, can help us maintain that weight loss. But just to get into it, what were you were going to?
I was going to ask about training. Is that where you were going?
Well, I wanted to think of specific things for our listeners that they can take away. Actually, I'm going to ask one question first. Garrett, when a client has insulin resistance, what I notice is when they do consume, so say that they're, I'm thinking of one client. She has really learned how to focus on the way she is eating, timing of her food, not having naked carbs, like pairing carbs with proteins and such. She's strength training 3 times a week and then walking. But it feels like anytime she has that celebratory meal or she has a work event, like that weight gain on the scale. And when I say weight gain, that increase on this scale, not that she's gained an actual pound of fat, sticks around so much longer. Can you talk about that before we get into the nitty gritty?
Yeah, that's a lot.
Is it an inflammation thing? Is it a water retention thing?
Yeah, I mean,
a little bit of both.
It's going to definitely be inflammation, water weight, right? Like if we're in this state of metabolic dysfunction, right? Like the body is not functioning as optimally as it should. Let's just say, for example, like her insulin is at a 12, her A1C is at 5.6.
What would be normal ranges?
Yeah, so optimal ranges of insulin are going to be like if we're talking like ruthless, 1 to 5. Realistically, 1 to 7, I can argue is like optimal. Western medicine standards, now get this, Western medicine standards is 1 to 25. So any below that is considered quote unquote normal and acceptable.
Well, if they want to stay sick.
Yeah.
There's so much that comes to mind with this is like, so yes, like obviously we're going to have additional water retention. There may be, some energy management issues, right? Because if we're dealing with like insulin resistance, like we said, hey, those cells are full. Now the pancreas is increasing insulin. We're having these dynamic problems. The other thing I've noticed with a lot of women too is like now we can dive down the rabbit hole of like, how's her gut health? How is hormone health? And what I found, I think this story can be very applicable. I was managing a client that when she started with me, Christina, was probably in a similar place as your client is right now. I had the honor of working with this client for 6 years. And a lot of times, when she would say, have that meeting, have that family meal, etc., that weight would just like stick, and it would stick for a while, right? It'd be like this 3 to 5 pound fluctuation, and it would stick around for 5 to 8 days before we would see a drop. That's where we can start to really look at, okay, gut health. And then we also have to look at like, what is like the hormone profile looking like? How is their stress management? All of those are going to be factorial there. And then the last thing I would say is what I notice with a lot of women is specifically this client that I'm speaking about. I was on her for I bet 4 months looking at her nutrition log, and I was like, hey, like Ash, you're doing really great. You're doing amazing. You're crushing it with hitting your macros. We're doing better at hitting our micros. We're doing better at hitting our fiber goals. But I keep noticing this trend where you are filling in the gaps with protein bars a lot. And then you cut out carbohydrates by eating this low carb tortilla so you can eat more carbohydrates here. People, and I'm not here to demonize foods. I think some of those foods have their places, but I think we need to almost categorize those foods in the same category as like,
ultra processed,
fried foods, etc. And when we remove those, when we are not removed, when we minimize those foods, within 6 weeks, she came to me and she was like, Garrett, I just got my period. And this client hadn't lost their period. But what she was freaking out about is for the first time in 15 years, she had a menstrual cycle that was not debilitating. She
Wow.
thought was her normal. Like she thought like living on Midol, heating pad on her tummy, like, or her ovaries, that was just her normal. And that was going to be what she had to deal with the rest of her life. With just that simple manipulation, as we worked on far more things before that simple manipulation, menstrual cycles went from being debilitating to being normal, like the way it should.
With this client, she does her best. She has a younger son, and it is important for her to have meals out with him. So they do like a couple meals out, or one meal out definitely on Friday. But then she will get caught up and go to Chipotle, or she'll go to, there's a Mexican restaurant she likes to go to. And it's those meals that, again, like we'll see this spike in her weight. And like you said, it will just stick around. So I want people to hear this, and maybe you can elaborate, is like, it's not that we're going to restrict all these foods. We want to get you to this healthy body that has a little bit more leeway when we consume maybe the protein bar or even a meal out. I had ham at my mom's house last night. My weight came up on the scale 4 pounds.
Yeah, mine went up 2 pounds.
Yeah, I was like, what the fuck? But I luckily can tolerate that. My body will, it was really just sodium. The ham was pretty salty and it'll flush it out, right? But I want people to hear that, and maybe you can elaborate again on, it's not that we're going to cut these things out forever, but get us to a healthy body that has better, like, leeway is the only word, like more cushion maybe to tolerate some of those foods. What's your input on that?
Tolerability.
Yeah.
Yeah. So kind of something that comes to mind. So I have a couple clients right now that are going to be going through what's called a flush protocol, using a very specific like nutritional shake that incorporates a lot of vitamins, nutrients, minerals, etc., that are going to assist the body in phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification of the liver. There is a lot of common misconceptions, a lot of coaches that respectfully just they're speaking on topics that they don't know about. Is the liver our major detox organ? 100%. Is it very powerful? 100%. Unfortunately, we live in a world where we are overladen with like microplastics, xenoestrogens, and so much more.
Endocrine disruptors. Yeah.
Overburden our liver. And our liver, while it's an amazing tool in the toolbox, it can be problematic. Some things that they're presenting with, it's just like, hey, this is going to be the best fit. So we're using that shake. We're also using a very, very specific diet. And I don't use a lot of meal plans with clients because I do believe in tracking. And I do believe in the fact that, like, look, you grew up how you grew up. I don't know how you eat, what you like to eat, etc. And it's not my job to tell you. But I like to, with them specifically, they are going to go on a meal plan, but I give them an outline of time frames of like, hey, this is how long we're going to utilize this tool to get this result, to get you where you want to go. And then we have an exit strategy. This is how we're going to exit. And I really like to frame that conversation. And the same thing is like recently I've been using a lot of animal-based diets, meaning unfamiliar, basically meat, eggs, fruit, honey, and sourdough bread. That is it. It is mind-numbing.
Good to me. I can eat that.
Mind-numbingly simple. We're not eliminating any food group. We're just simply eliminating a lot of other foods, etc. And I really like to use that tool. But again, I always frame it as like, hey, momentarily, we are going to use this diet approach, and slowly but surely, we are going to incorporate other foods back into your nutrition. And I kind of use it as a diagnostic tool as well. It's a really cheap, affordable intervention from a perspective of maybe I have an inclination that someone has an underlying gut health issue. I can use an animal-based diet essentially as an elimination diet. And then as I add foods back in, if all of a sudden I start seeing problems with specific foods, I can use it as a diagnostic tool to gain knowledge and understanding of what might be going on without having to do expensive testing, if like a budget is of concern.
Yeah.
All that to kind of like round out and get to your question is like in this client specific case, depending on how much she needs to lose, this may be where I sit down and have a really hard conversation of like, look, here's what we're going to do. We're going to use animal-based nutrition. This is going to quickly drop basically any inflammation that you are carrying. I need you to nail this within like 95% of accuracy of like this, you're not eating outside of these parameters. And I need you to do it for about 8 to 12 weeks. We are going to go into a heavy diet. Like we're going to really try to pull some body fat. We're going to really try to pull some inflammation. And again, this is going to be dependent. You know, if this is a person who has maybe 15 to 20 pounds to lose, this can be a great tool and utilization. And especially if you frame it appropriately. And I'm like, hey, slowly but surely, we're going to start to titrate foods back in. You're going to have a lot more freedom to come back. And a lot of times, if someone has only 15 to 20 pounds to lose, and we use this tool, we get that 15 to 20 pounds off, maybe even 25. That's where we can create a lot more freedom as we head back to maintenance calories. Like you were saying, Christina, is like, you've built your foundation for years. Having 4 pounds on you isn't that bad, like today. And you know, within a couple days, as long as you return to normal activities, get your steps, like we talked about on our show together.
Yeah.
Water in, eat your normal meals. It is unlikely that that scale will not just plop right back down because you've earned it. And that's where, like, with these clients specifically, what I'm talking about is like, hey, we have to earn that freedom eventually. And it's possible. And there's a long way and there's a short way to get there. And it depends on like mentally, how much can you handle? Because if mentally you know that you can handle it, you understand that this is limited and we can feed you out of it, then you're going to get to a point where you can go have your evening meal with your son and go out to eat and maybe have a couple of slices of pizza, etc. Wake up the next day, hydrate, walk, and that weight change will be gone by Sunday or Monday.
Right.
Rather than 5 days. I would say a big piece of that though, is what I kind of talked about with Ashley's case study. What I was talking about with her is like the removal of a lot of other processed foods in other places of your life, such as those protein bars, such as the tortillas, the other things. The removal of those I found over the years gives people a lot more freedom in having meals out with their family when they're eating whole nutrient dense foods at home and avoiding those things.
It's almost like, let's save it for that. And when we're not eating for that meal with my son, I'm eating those whole foods, right? And it's balance. You know, your protocol sounds a lot like I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Cabral. Do you know who that is? Stephen Cabral. He's a functional health doctor, but it sounds like he starts with a shake. He says like liquids before lunch, has a shake that is relatively or mainly, excuse me, protein, fats, fruit, and water, and then he has a whole protocol, but it's very similar in that we're going to then reincorporate foods and titrate them back in down the line. So just wondering if you had any connection to him. But Amanda had a question about training. That was a great kind of overview of nutrition and what that looks like. Would you add anything else to nutrition for the insulin resistant girly?
Yeah, the nutrition piece, right? So, I mean, giving like an overarching is number one, this has been talked about multiple times, but to give you like applicable data, right? We need to prioritize protein. I always say, hey, we need to aim for body weight in grams of like goal body weight. So if you're 180 pounds, your goal body weight is 145. Cool. Eat 145 grams of protein. And that's just, very simple, very applicable data. Increase in fiber intake. I want to see 25 to upwards of 35 grams of fiber, and we do need that from diverse sources. Ever be eating a meal, ideally, very, very rarely should we ever be eating a meal that is void of protein and fiber. Every meal, right? Like we should never be running through the Starbucks line and having, this 800 calorie coffee, and guess what? I'm sorry, that muffin that you think is only a couple hundred calories, it's probably 500. And before you know it, you've smashed 1,200 calories for breakfast, and you're completely void of nutrients, void of fiber, and void of protein.
Yeah.
It isn't, I think, something that doesn't get talked a lot about. We've seen a lot of, I don't know. It really depends, but like I've consulted on a lot of cases. I see a lot of women that are still eating like really like low fat diets, like obnoxiously low fat diet.
Yep.
Want a quick way to fuck up your hormones? Don't eat.
Well, and
I was going to say, girl, preach.
Yeah.
But boy, preach.
Well, and Amanda is a like prenatal postpartum specialist, and even in building a baby, she sees that a lot.
So strategic carbohydrates. So I don't want you to eliminate carbs completely, but very, very strategic. And timing is going to be massive here. So it's like,
can I give an example real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
So that particular client, because we were seeing weight gain, and I'm like, I finally put it back on her. I was like, what do you think we could change? So this is just pertaining to what you said. She goes, well, I noticed that I will hold back my calories, especially if I have a meal out. And then at the end of the night, I will consume all of the calories, right, that I have left over. Whereas starting the day off with the protein and the fiber and like hitting those targets. And then I basically told her, let's do that. Go to the meal, right? And you're already going to be satiated for the majority of the day. So we're just naturally going to eat less at that meal. And then if we need a little something afterwards, we have like a higher protein, maybe like a yogurt bowl or something as our nightcap. Whereas before she was kind of flipping that. Is that kind of a good example?
Yeah. So a couple of things that kind of come to mind with that case study is definitely is like I said, let's focus on protein. Let's focus on veggies, and fiber, and even maybe a serving or two of fruit, because like a serving or two of blueberries, like I think even like 2 full servings of blueberries is like 27 grams of carbs. It's not that much.
It's delicious.
Delicious, full of nutrients, right, etc. Like you said, you're going to go into that meal probably making wiser decisions because you're not going to be ravenous. Another thing I would say, and I notice that impacts women a lot, is eating, especially like highly palatable, highly processed foods. Eating close to bedtime is probably not going to be a good idea. And it's not because it's going to make you fat. This is going to be like multifactorial as far as like, number one is if you already are insulin resistant, eating that highly palatable meal, high carbohydrates, lacking in micronutrient status, etc., we're going to have some blood sugar regulation issues. Going to bed, which is going to impact your sleep, which is going to make the following day managing your nutrition even more challenging because your hunger cues are going to be really, really messed up that next day. They're going to be really messed up that day. You're going to probably wake up and you're going to feel extremely tired, fatigued, groggy. So again, making quality nutrition choices first thing, even in the morning, is going to be a very challenging thing, because you're going to be like cooking eggs sounds terrible. I'm going to have a Pop-Tart, or you know what I mean? Like, we're going to lead to just poor like nutritional choices the following day. So that's where like front loading our nutrients, front loading our protein, going into that meal satiated is going to lead to much better outcomes on the back end. And then also is just like being as mindful as we possibly can about like meal timing. Like, I have like kind of like a rule of thumb, like I won't, unless absolutely necessary and it's like a one-off situation, like at a conference or something, I really am not going to go out to eat like after 7 o'clock, because I'm typically like a 9 o'clock go to bed, or like it's just not a thing for me, because like it's going to impact my sleep. My heart rate is going to be higher. All of those things, like it's going to, like, nutritional choices can impact those things 100%.
Oh my gosh. I didn't realize that. My husband and I were purchasing a vehicle on Friday, and we didn't eat until maybe 7:30.
Ooh.
And I go to bed at like 8:39,
Yeah.
and my heart rate on my Oura ring was 57 beats per minute, when usually it cruises around like 49 to 52. And I was like, what the fuck? I didn't realize that's why. Interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. I was like, am I stressed out? It's my meal.
And glucose regulation being an issue, which
The sushi too. So there you go. Training.
Okay.
We're going to get there.
Yeah. So I think because we've focused a lot on nutrition, kind of all the other touch points except our training. And we kind of touched on it in the beginning, but to kind of create the whole circle here, training wise, what do you want these women doing who are experiencing insulin resistance? And I mean, I'm sure most of us know the answer, but just so we can really hit that nail on the head for them.
So training, in my opinion, is going to need to be highly individualized based on current circumstances. So I can give you kind of, we've created throughout this episode kind of two avatars.
Sure.
So we have the chronic over exerciser, and this didn't not even be on purpose. Like, it could be on purpose, but it could also not be on purpose. Just like, hey, you live in a great area in the country and you're just a really active person and you enjoy these things. It may not be coming from a place of punishment. Is first and foremost, if I have like a chronic over exerciser and under eater in comparison to their output, I see this all too often with women. Is, I'll get a woman who's strength training 4 to 6 days a week. They're doing maybe a couple HIIT sessions a week. They're doing a lot of cardio, and they're focusing on their step counts. Like, right, they're doing all the activity. And oftentimes when they come to me, they're eating 22 to 2,400 calories, maybe a little bit less. But realistically speaking, when we're talking about women, that's a pretty decent amount of food. But it's just not an amount of food for the level of activity and output that they are asking of themselves. So this can become problematic. So first and foremost, we're going to reduce down to 2 to 3 sessions per week of strength training. That's it. I am going to remove all formal cardio from their program, like completely. That is going away. Again, we need to have a very big framing conversation of like, hey, this is going away for this specific amount of time. We can add these things back in when we improve our internal health. But we're going to add it in very specifically and with actual reason behind why we're doing these things. We're not just going to be doing them because they make me feel good.
Right.
Go do yoga. Like, go learn how to relax.
Right. Sit with yourself.
Then we're going to set a step goal. Typically, I'm going to aim for steps roughly anywhere between 8 to 12,000 daily. If this person is highly active, I may even accept a step count of like 15,000, just because, like, hey, they like to move their body. That's totally acceptable. Steps really aren't problematic in this situation. And we are going to prioritize things like recovery, stress management, learning to sit with ourselves, doing yoga, doing Pilates, doing things that are more restorative than the things that got them into the situation that they're in. Now, the other avatar, right? under muscled, overweight to some degree, whether that be you're actually like overweight, or we have that like
Skinny fat.
skinny
Imbalance.
fat avatar where we're just simply under muscled, we have more body fat, etc. 4 strength training sessions per week. This is plenty. You don't need any more. You do not need 5. You do not need 6. It is very, very rare. I just had a conversation with Justin King. He managed Chris Bumstead's final attempt at the Olympia, where he won his 6th Mr. Olympia in the classic physique. He also trains Buda Baker, a member of the Arizona Cardinals. And I think he said on the podcast, they're up to 23 different athletes in 23 different sports.
Wow. That's
and it is very, very rare, even in professional sports, that they are training more than 5 days per week. And even if it is, it's a very specific phase for a very short window of time. It is unnecessary. 4 days of strength training, structured step targets, really looking at 10 to 12,000 steps. And here's one that I'm really gung-ho on. I really love to front load cardiovascular work. And what I mean by this is we are going to incorporate 6 45-minute zone 2 cardio sessions in 6 days a week for 12 weeks, provided I don't have worries of cortisol management issues. Like if stress management for this specific person is a huge issue, I might not do that because prolonged steady state bouts of cardio are going to cause even further issues with cortisol. So we may use some different aerobic conditioning tools to get the result that I'm looking for, but I'm going to really front load that cardio up front to build an aerobic base, because once an aerobic base is built, you can maintain it with only 2 to 3 20 to 30 minute sessions per week if you have a really robust aerobic system. It can be multifactorial. Like it is going to improve metabolic flexibility, cellular health. We're going to get real nerdy, mitochondrial biogenesis, right? So the ability to turn over and create new cells. So I'm going to front load a lot of cardio. And again, I'm going to have a big framing conversation of like, hey, I know this is a lot. I know this is a big time suck, but I need you to do this. And in the back end, we're going to have a lot of big
more freedom.
Focusing on recovery in quality of those sessions. The biggest thing, obviously, and you ladies know this, is just meeting them where they are at and starting with protocols that are going to do so. So it really just depends on what that, but that's where we're going to, really go with strength training.
Yeah. I really appreciate the 2 avatars because they are our client.
Yeah.
We have
Nice
both.
job.
Yeah. Good job. So I guess I want to just end with, what if someone was listening now, what is like maybe 1 or 2 things if they're like, okay, this is me. I have the symptoms. I want to change. They may not be coaching with any of us. Obviously, that's an option for them. What can they start doing this week to support their body?
Yeah. So right off the get, track your steps for 1 week. Find out where you are. Track them. Don't have a target. Track them. How active are you? And then build 1,000 steps a week until you hit a target range. Super simple. Track them, get a pulse. Okay, cool. I average 5,000 steps. And I think that's the biggest thing. I really want to talk about that is this is a game of averages. If there's one day you only hit 2,000 steps, like whatever, don't freak out. Look at the average across the week, figure it out, and add an average of 1,000 steps per, average. Get yourself to an average of 1,000 additional steps the following week. Build slowly, make it manageable. This is going to improve insulin sensitivity without adding stress to the body, right? And this can be a really huge game changer. Is just a 10-minute walk post meal that can matter. Fun fact: you can reverse insulin. You can reverse metabolic syndrome in under 2 weeks.
Wow.
I think pause, like
Dun, dun, dun.
yeah, like mic
2
drop.
weeks.
Yeah.
You can. It's mind-blowing, like how quickly these things can happen.
Mhm.
Begin each meal with protein, aiming for your goal weight in grams. And then, of course, that 25 to 35 grams of diverse fiber sources. That was like my two primary like lifestyle movers. And if we're talking about supplementation, berberine is just like it's a no-brainer. In that case, berberine has been shown to improve insulin sensitivity through multiple mechanisms across the board. I was listening to one of the talks last week, and this specific practitioner, this is not common at all, but I can see where it could happen. She had a gal, they were incorporating a lot of what we talked about. She incorporated berberine, and the girl lost like 25 pounds just from improvements in like metabolic function, insulin sensitivity, etc., from that berberine. And if you look, you compare apples to apples in berberine to metformin, the preferred medical intervention in that situation. There is loads of studies that berberine outperforms metformin.
Would you suggest berberine for someone that's not working on the nutrition exercise portion? Like if they're just don't know where to start and that's kind of an easy win, or is there not really any use for it if they're not focusing on the other things?
I mean, I think, yeah, I would never really recommend a supplement if you're not starting to work on those other things.
Okay. Yeah.
That's we could go down a whole rabbit hole.
Yeah. I once had a client who asked about it and I was like, I mean, sure, but you're more likely to achieve what you're looking for by focusing on the other things and then adding it.
Now, in the case of, okay, she's hired a coach, right? So she technically is working on those things. Maybe she's not being adherent. It might be advantageous, like in the client case study that I just told you about, that I heard about, that might get her a huge win. It might help her start to manage her because if she has really poor insulin management, this could be where some of those behaviors are coming from, is like she's not making good choices. She's not going for her walks because she's having chronic like energy fluctuations, etc., where all of a sudden the incorporation of berberine could start to manage those things, making her make better choices, leading to her being more adherent. It's kind of the same thought process of like why I'm so passionate and I do actually really like GLP-1s when applied appropriately with coaching guidance, because it can be that catalyst to get you to make the lifestyle choices that you know that you need to make.
One quick question just about supplementation. A lot of clients want to take like a Metamucil to hit fiber. What are your thoughts on that? Or a fiber gummy or something?
I think it's like a bridge that can be utilized. Again, it can be like similar to what she just asked. I think it can be a tool in the toolbox, but it needs to be looked at that. And then we need to start to continue to educate of like, hey, start eating 100 grams of raspberries.
Yeah.
Eat 50 grams of avocado. Throw in some chia seeds in your yogurt. Like, it's so easy to hit your fiber target.
And it's delicious. Why not? Love. This is a great combo.
Thank you.
It's great in so many ways. Obviously, we're very much aligned in how we approach clients. And I really appreciate you taking the time. Tell our listeners where they can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me across all platforms, GQ Fitness with an extra S. The only platform I would say that is not true is YouTube. You can find me at the Intentional Health for Women podcast. And that's going to be across all like long form platforms, right? YouTube, podcasts, Spotify, Intentional Health for Women podcasts. And then, yeah, GQ Fitness as far as like short form content.
And we'll link our conversation so that people can hear your podcast and subscribe to it. And yeah, I think that'll be good. Awesome. Well, thank you again. For those of you who found this helpful, We'd love a 5-star rating and review. Tell us what you learned today. Make sure if you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to comment because we have our giveaway, which people are loving. We love your comments. And if you haven't already, make sure, as we just talked about, we are subscribing, following, so you don't miss an episode of this. And we are going to leave you today the same way we leave you every single episode.
What you say in the mind,
you see in the mirror.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Yay.